Welcome into the Skol Purple podcast, everybody, and hopefully you are warm, safe, and inside on this frigid Thursday evening before the Vikings take on the Giants and before Christmas as well. We are glad to have Big Dash at Big Dash Knows on Twitter on the show tonight. He's going to talk to us about the Giants. So glad to have him on. Big Dash, tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit. I suppose I should maybe introduce Tony too. Tony, hey, how's it going, man?
I mean, the listeners know me. I mean, they've seen this face. But no, yes. Hi, everybody. Again, Steggy here at the Skull Purple podcast. Certainly excited. And yeah, hopefully everybody's staying inside, staying safe. It was an ice rink today. So welcome. Listen to the podcast. It's much safer than being out on the roads.
That's right. That's right. And yeah, I'm Carson. If you are new here, glad you are with us. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and like button if you would. And we'd appreciate your input in the comment sections as well. So let's go ahead and hear a little bit about Big Dash. Dash, appreciate again you coming on.
Thanks for
And
having me.
tell us a little bit about your Giants fandom. I also see a Yankees hat back there. I'm sorry. I guess maybe I should be sorry as a Twins fan, but
No, it was a rough one. Built up to get broke down normally, like the Yankees do. But Big Dash knows I'm originally from New Jersey, North New Jersey. Born and raised a Giants fan. I'm in California now. But yeah, just been a big Giants fan all my life. Actually just started getting active on, Twitter and YouTube, as far as putting out my own content and things like that. But I've been on other podcasts before and things like that. But I just love to talk football altogether and also, New York Giants football at the end of the day. That's what I'm all about.
there we
Absolutely.
go. There we
Yeah.
go. Well, let's talk a little bit about your Giants fandom. You said you grew up in New Jersey, so is that kind of how you got acclimated with the Giants, or how did you
Yeah.
fall in love, I guess, with Giants football?
I like to say that I didn't have a choice in the matter, growing up. It is what it is. But the first time I actually fell in love with the team, for real, my fourth grade, we had a field trip to the Giant Stadium back then, and at the time, Lawrence Taylor was still playing. So I give away my age a little bit. So I was able to meet a lot of those guys in fourth grade, and that stuck with me or solidified my fandom for the New York Giants. But I'll have to blame my father, my grandfather, also, for being such a Giants fan for so long. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Lawrence Taylor, man, he was something special. What
Yep.
a player he was in the league for a long time, and yeah, I mean that's if you grew up watching him, I can understand why you became a Giants fan. There's no question about it.
Yes, sir.
Well, it's a similar story you talk to most Vikings fans. I will say this, and I love the Vikings. Obviously, I'm a big Vikings fan. I know Carson's a big Vikings fan, but I think most Vikings fans were kind of born into the fandom. You don't see a lot of transient, Vikings fans where it was like, well, I was trying to pick my favorite team and I went with the Vikings. Like that's just not usually the words that come out of people's mouths. It's usually like, yeah, I was here, my family, they're big Vikings fans,
Yeah.
so I feel it, man. It's in my blood. And I think you kind of form that personal connection when you've got, kind of family, friends, people you grew up with, they all kind of
Absolutely.
watch the same team. So,
Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and dive into this matchup. Before we get into the specifics of the matchup, Dash, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on the current state of affairs with the Giants. How have you seen this team as from a fan perspective, and just just your overall perspective on this team this season? 8-5-1. I don't know what your expectations were coming into the year, but have they met, exceeded, or have they played below expectations based on what you thought in the first year for Brian Dayball as your
Yeah.
head coach?
Now that's a good place to start. One thing I would say at the beginning of the season, I thought anywhere between 6 to 9 wins was the range. For me personally, I thought that 7 wins was going to be the floor. But to have a fast start like that, expectations start to go up. And I will say they exceeded my expectations personally. Um, but I still, right now, where we're at right now, I'm thinking, you know, we need to steal one or two more games out of these three. And hopefully we can steal one against you guys because you guys are rolling right now. And I do have a funny story about a couple Viking fans I ran into last week. Right after that big win, the big comeback, I was going into the store and the guys were together. And I go, that's a heck of a win. And he goes, yeah. He said, and he goes, we're the worst 11-3 team. And I thought it was kind of funny that he said that because for the longest this season, we were also saying, we're the worst, 2-1 team, and then 6-1 team. We're the worst 7-1, and I thought it was funny to hear that coming from the Vikings, especially the way you guys been rolling. So, a little funny story about some Viking fans I ran into.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Carson, but that seems to be an every week occurrence with our ball club for sure. Every week it's, the Vikings are frauds, the Vikings are the worst. As you mentioned, it was,
See, I didn't even know that.
8-1, 9-1, 9-2, however it's gone, every week it's been the same kind of story or the same, kind of narrative around the Vikings. And yeah, I guess as a Vikings fan, I don't want to say you start to believe it, but you at least start considering the idea, especially the way they opened up against Indy. I know I texted Carson this. We talked a little bit about this on Twitter at halftime. Uh, but I would say my confidence was shook after that first half. I'm going 33-0. This defense looks like it's about as tough as a wet napkin. And obviously the second half was the second half. It was amazing. It was a fun win. But there are definitely holes. That's for sure.
We're all dealing with holes, man, for sure. Giants defense, we have holes, up and down the board. Offensive line is one place, but like I said, I'll let you guys ask the questions and we can get to, different areas of the team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah, what do you feel,
definitely.
Carson? You think we're frauds?
Well, that was a direct question. I don't like this at all. But no, I'm still waiting to see because I think that the Vikings. Here's the thing: I said to somebody yesterday, I said I think the Vikings can compete with anybody in the league, but I also think they can get blown out by almost anybody in this league. That's just where I feel the Vikings are right now, and I don't know if that answers the question, but that's
I
kind of
just
how
think
I
it's
feel.
it's a team that's out of balance, Dash. What you're going to see on Saturday is an offense that's got enough firepower to beat arguably any team in the league, and then a
Right.
defense that's about as bad as you're going to find at times. There are moments where they are serviceable. Where they had a lot of success throughout all these wins is because if you were to look at the statistics, it looks really, really ugly until you look at their red zone efficiency. They
Okay.
weren't giving up a lot of touchdowns for many, many weeks. They're one of the best teams in the red zone, best defenses in the red zone, keeping teams out of the end zone.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what's happened is they've started to get a little leaky as the season has progressed. So obviously, you can't give up what was it, 400 plus yards,
Yeah.
5 games in a row of over 400 plus yards of offense.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, also start allowing touchdowns. That's just you're not going to win a lot of
See,
games.
that's what happened with us. So we're pretty much the same way. We had that bend but don't break type of defense where, between the 20s, teams would get all those yards, then we buckle down, into the red zone and stop them or prevent them from getting touchdowns or actually scoring. So it's similar situation. And it's funny too because I look at your roster and I've watched the last two games going into this week of you guys. Well, the Detroit game and then the Indy game, and you guys have some players on that defensive side. So I was wondering, is it like execution? Is it coaching? Because I don't think it's necessarily the players. What do you guys think it is? Because I couldn't pinpoint it. So I'm thinking execution or just coaching
Yeah,
maybe.
I'll go ahead and take it first. I think it's a mix of a lot of things. I think number one, everybody is, for a lack of a better word, bitching about Ed Donatello's defense and his scheme, and we like to nitpick. Maybe that's a better word. and we are nitpicking extremely on Ed Donatel's defense so
Okay.
far this season, because we do think that this Viking defense has some players, like you mentioned. You got Patrick Peterson, you got Harrison Smith, you got Daniil Hunter, you got Zedarius Smith. You got those kind of guys on your defense. You would think that this defense wouldn't be so bad, right? Like
Yeah.
those, just by those names alone, you're thinking, okay, this could be a top 15, maybe top 10 type of defense. But part of it has been, I think, you start to see some of those older guys regress a little bit.
Okay.
Part of it is also Ed Donatel's scheme and his unwillingness until the second half of the Colts game last week to adjust his scheme, where they started to play more man coverage. A lot of it was cover two, deep zone, two cover shell, whatever the terminology is,
Yeah.
but lot of off coverage. They would not press man at all before last week, so that definitely plays a role in it as well. So, but I do think, based on the struggle that the Vikings defense has had the last 2 years going into this one, would also lead me to believe that there's been regression with
Okay.
some of these players, because under Mike Zimmer, who obviously known for defense, the last 2 years the defense hasn't played that well, and maybe that's partly on Zimmer, but I also think it's got to have something to do with the regression. And the Vikings, really, other than adding Zedarius Smith, their defense really hasn't changed that much from last
Okay.
year. So that's really the only key addition to the defensive side
Okay.
that the Vikings have. Um, so yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag
It
from my point of view.
no, and it's funny because, like I said, there's a lot of similarities between the two teams for us. With Wink Martindale, it's always man to man. It's always, the press coverage and things like that. So a little bit different. But the way I look at it is, we always get on Wink Martindale because we don't, our corners are hurt. We're dealing with, backups. A guy like Dory Jackson is out. We're missing our safety, Xavier McKinney. We got some guys stepping up. So our first two corners are Fabian Moreau, and then a guy named Nick McLeod, which you guys might be familiar with, Nick McLeod, because I believe he did play for the Vikings a little bit. I believe, maybe Nick McLeod.
That's possible.
I'm
The
trying to
name
remember where
sounds
he
really
came from.
familiar.
He didn't play for you guys, but he was on the team, I should say. He's a guy that we picked up. But yeah, so the scheme right now, a lot of the fans were wanting Wink Martindale to stop with all the blitzing, because we were getting ate up a little bit, and to just concentrate on getting pressure with the front four. And up until last week, um, in that Commanders game where Kayvon Thibodeau just took off and had a great game, we were trying to be, a lot of stunts, a lot of blitzing with the corners and stuff like that, but we just didn't have the kind of secondary to give up, those freebies for the quarterback in case the blitz didn't get home. So we're happy with, Aziz Ojolari coming back, and, like, again, Kayvon Thibodeau, doing what he's doing, and then also get Leonard Williams back, because he was gone for a while, and Dexter Lawrence is having a Pro Bowl year. So it's kind of like, is Wink Martindale gonna adjust more, or is he gonna go back to what he's known for? And hopefully, I know with Kirk Cousins, may not be the best quarterback, but he's definitely a smart enough quarterback to see those blitz coming and probably take advantage of it. So that's the main thing I think that needs to happen, is pretty much how Kirk Cousins goes. I think that's how your team is gonna go. And if we can get home, then that's our best bet to try to steal a victory from you guys.
Yeah.
Well, before I let Tony chime in here, it's interesting you mentioned the blitzing. Kirk Cousins, actually, when blitzed, is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league this year, based on numbers, or I think it was this year. Maybe it's career wise, maybe it's both, but he is not great when there is a blitz put on. He doesn't do so bad with a four-man rush, when there's pressure from a four-man rush, but when there's a blitz and it gets home, like, he's often not great. So that does worry me a little bit, but hopefully the fact that Christian Darrisaw is back and the Vikings offensive line is somewhat improved from where it has been, maybe not so much on the interior, but I think that does give me some confidence, but also I'm still a little worried there. But I do think Adoree Jackson being out is huge for Justin Jefferson in particular, but the
You-
Vikings wide
Can I
receiver core as
let me
well.
be honest? When it comes to Justin Jefferson, I don't think it matters who's the cornerback. Just to be honest,
Fair
just to
enough.
be honest, it doesn't matter. I think Adoree Jackson helps, but you can't stop Justin Jefferson. You got to stop the guy that's trying to get the ball to Justin Jefferson. That's where I think we
Yeah.
need to attack. And like you said, if he's like you said, if he's not that good against the blitz, maybe Wink Martindale pick that up and maybe we will blitz more. But I'm hoping not, because again, our corners are very vulnerable, and you guys have a pretty good tight end as well. And the Giants have a history of not being able to cover tight ends, um,
Oh, that's
and that's
good.
just a fact for a couple
That's good for us anyway.
for
Yeah.
years. For years we've had trouble covering tight ends.
It sounds like the Vikings, Tony, with trying to stop running quarterbacks.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Well, and that kind of, I mean, you want to talk about that? I mean, there's Daniel Jones. I mean, I don't want to
Yeah,
say
that's
Daniel
right.
Jones
I
is,
just I just
you
put it
know,
on the tee for you right there.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't want to say Daniel Jones is like, Mr. Elusive, but I mean, he can move. I mean, he can hurt you with his legs. Is he, you know, Lamar Jackson? Is he Josh Allen? Is he, some of these other guys that are known for kind of moving with their legs? I don't know. I don't know if he's got the body strength. He doesn't have the size, but I mean, he can still hurt you with the legs. I mean, that's for sure. I'm worried about that. What I'm really worried about on the offensive side of the ball for the Vikings, and you just mentioned it, Dash, is our line is a little beat up right now. Our starting center, we just got today, was he'll be out again this week, and I know that really hurt us against Indy, not having him in the lineup. So yeah, and watching Thibodeau, man, I watched that whole Sunday night game. That was a great game. Boy, that guy's just a beast. At least he was on Sunday night. So if he plays like that against this line, Carson hit it on the head. Kirk Cousins is, if you can rattle Kirk Cousins, he struggles. He gets happy feet. He starts making quick reads. He starts making mistakes. See, this is what separates, in my opinion, as a Vikings fan, and I'm not a Kirk hater or a Kirk stan. What separates Kirk Cousins from being great and being good, and for the record, I think he is good, is that he can't find that next gear that other great quarterbacks can take when they're under pressure or when things get off script. If things are pretty clean for him, and he'll take hits, don't get me wrong, he'll take hits, but if he can feel comfortable in the pocket, oh, he'll eat you alive. He's got a lot of talent. The guy is obviously very
Yeah, we're
talented.
familiar. We're familiar with Kirk Cousins all
Yeah,
those
you're
years
for me
in
exactly.
Washington.
Years
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Washington, exactly. But if you get in his face, you start getting him rattled. As a Vikings fan, that's when I start getting worried because that's where he really struggles. Um, on the defensive side of the ball, I expect to see a similar approach with this team than we saw with another team. I'm trying to think. I just had the comparison in my head, but I expect the Vikings to create a lot of pressure at the line. I'd see a lot of stacked boxes. My guess is they're going to do what probably most teams try to do with the Giants, which is basically we're going to try to take Saquon out of the game and we're going to make Daniel Jones beat us. Our corners are also not very good. And I love Patrick Peterson. Obviously, he's the best of the bunch. He can show out at times, but look, I mean, he's getting a little long in the tooth. He doesn't exactly have the speed like he used to. We still play a lot of zone. We don't really play a lot of man. And, if Jones can still find the time, I expect him to put up a decent amount of yardage this game. It's just going to be, can we keep him out of the end zone? That's really where I see this game going. So
So
It's
Dash, the
yeah.
question I have for you off of that, knowing how bad the Vikings secondary has been at times this year, I don't know how much more confident you are because we know that the Giants don't have the greatest receiving core in the world right now.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's funny that you say that because yeah, you guys having a weaker pass defense does not help us at all because we're not throwing the ball like that anyway. And I don't see that thing changing at all in the Minnesota game. Yeah, the offense runs through Saquon Barkley. That's a given. One thing or one key guy that we got back was Ben Bredesen at left guard, and it was not a coincidence that once he was in the game last week and they had him on the pitch count because he's coming off a knee injury. That's when we had that long 97-yard drive. And then at the end of the game where Saquon Barkley was finding those holes, Ben Bredesen was on the field for that too. So he's back a whole another week. He should be the full time starter this week at left guard. So we're loving that right now. But the one thing that's saving Daniel Jones is especially with the defenses playing in the box to stop Saquon Barkley, is that they're giving up a lot of the short passes, and Daniel Jones will take it. He will absolutely take the short pass, and he's actually one of the quickest people getting the ball out. So that's one thing that he's doing now. Another thing that comes with that, he does not take a lot of chances. So you might see a shot downfield early in the game, but once the both teams have settled in, you rarely see Daniel Jones take the ball downfield. And maybe that helps you guys, in the long run. If you guys keep everything in front of you and make sure you make your tackles, before the sticks and things like that. But that's where we're at right now, and that's the big division between Giants fans. And I know you said, there's Kirk Cousins stands and haters in the Giants fan base. It's absolutely the same thing, and we go at it on a day to day. Whether Daniel Jones deserves to be here next year, whether we should throw him into the Hudson. That's where it is right now with Daniel Jones. And for me, I'm a little bit different. I'm in the middle. I like to see how this season's going to play out. I can separate 2022 from 2023. And right now, as long as this man is wearing blue, I'm going to root for him. I do think that he's improved a lot since the past two regimes. But again, he has to show us. Well, he has to show me a lot more. If he's going to be that future quarterback for the New York Giants. And like I said, for you guys and Kirk Cousins, I don't know where his contract is right now, but I know when he was with Washington, they strung him along and strung him along, because he was doing just enough to stay there, but couldn't get you over the hump. Now it seems like he's doing the same thing, or you guys have that same concern in Minnesota.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and again, I've said this on this podcast probably more times than Carson wants to hear it. But at the end of the day, I think Kirk Cousins has enough tools to win you a lot of games. He just needs a team around him. And I know that's a little cliche, but if I were to put him in a tier of quarterbacks, to me he sits somewhere in the, and again, not the same, but just in the same tier of like a Matt Ryan, where Matt Ryan
Not
had
this
some
year.
great years.
Ooh.
Hey, look, I'm not saying they're the same. I'm just saying Matt Ryan needed people. I mean, you saw when he didn't have Julio, all of a sudden it was like, well, you know. And again, I'm not saying they're the same. I'm just saying they're in that same tier of, you're not a Brady, you're not a Rodgers, you're not a Breeze. It's not like you can just throw a smattering of players around these guys and they can win. You're going to have other stars, and you're going to need to have a balanced team.
I'll tell you right now, today I'm taking Cousins over Matt Ryan.
Well, I'm not saying Matt Ryan today. I'm saying
Okay.
Matt Ryan in his prime.
Prime Matt
Yeah,
Ryan. Prime Phillip Rivers, prime
Okay.
Eli Manning, maybe.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
prime Matt Ryan that loses in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's right. Gives up 28-3 leads and 33-0 leads, as it were. But
Yeah.
that's
Somebody asked me a question. I joined another podcast this week, and I thought this was such an intriguing question. I'll ask it to you two just for a quick little hitter. Who would you rather have? Next year, you've got an elite team, but your quarterback goes down in training camp, and your backup is just like a nobody, right? You've got to take a veteran next year. Is it Carson Wentz or Matt Ryan?
oh no.
Oh man. If I'm forced to take one, it's going to be Matt Ryan because Carson Wentz can't stay on the field, and that's hard.
Tony,
That's a hard
why?
one.
I know. Funny, I actually went Wentz. I went Wentz just because he's got a little bit of mobility.
Yeah, I would go with Wentz, and
Yeah.
based on, I think Wentz maybe still has a little bit more potential, where Matt Ryan's potential is long out the door. So, and based on what we've seen this year, I would say I'm going to probably lean towards Wentz, but boy, it's not an easy decision.
What about first half Matt Ryan?
Yeah,
Yeah,
first half, Matt
First
Ryan,
half, Matt
that's
Ryan.
right.
Or how about this caveat? If you
Hall of
take
Fame
Wentz,
quarterback.
you
Right.
get Heineke automatically as a backup to take his job.
You know what? I'm not,
Right.
You know what? I actually like Heineke. I like his story. I think he's fearless. I think he plays with house money. But yeah, I mean, I don't kick Heineke too much because I like I said, Old Dominion. I love the background of Heineke.
I love Heineke. Heineke was here for a bit, and he arguably could have started for the Minnesota Vikings in the 2016 season. That started with Teddy Bridgewater, his knee exploding in training camp,
Yeah, I remember that.
and then we essentially would have turned to Heineke. He was the backup to Teddy, and Heineke,
Or
and he was a
Sean
young
Hill.
guy. Yeah, he was out partying downtown Minneapolis. His buddy locked his keys in his townhouse, and Heineke thought it'd be a great idea to stick his foot through the glass storm door so they could get in, and he cut his foot so deep that it severed like a tendon, and he
I
had to be
never
out
heard
for the
that story.
season.
Wow, I
Yeah,
never heard that story.
yep.
Wow,
That's why we ended up going and getting Sam Bradford from Philadelphia.
wow. And we
That
all know how that turned out.
so I see Soda in our comments here. Kirk is the best backup QB of all time. Think about it though. When he came in for RG3 and now he's
Yeah,
made a
Yeah.
career out of starting, so
yeah.
he might be onto something there. Maybe Drew Bledsoe or Tony Romo, I should say, could be thrown in that conversation because technically he was the backup to Drew Bledsoe, right? Before,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, or Tom Brady, maybe. Am I thinking Tom Brady being the
Tom Brady
backup
was the
to
Tom
backup
Brady
for
Drew
was the
Bledsoe.
Bledsoe?
backup.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And
Or
don't hey
was
give
Tony Romo a
Carson.
backup to
Tony
Drew
Romo was never
Bledsoe
a
as well?
backup. He was undrafted for Dallas,
Yeah,
Okay.
and then he took
Okay.
yeah,
over. I
yeah. And
forget who the
Carson, I just
quarterback
want to
was.
Carson, I want to remind you, you need to make sure we tamp down the Cowboys. Anything good for Cowboys? We do have a Giants fan in here, so we got to make sure to keep
That's
that
right. That's
to
right.
the to a minimum.
As much as I hate Dallas, I hate Philly more. So I could take a little bit of Dallas love if you guys have some. But yes, Philly, anything Philly, no.
We can be friends then. We don't like Philly
Yes,
over here either.
that's right. We can't stand the Eagles, so. But I did want to mention one thing here. So just wanted to prove my statistics to be correct, thanks to PFF. So Kirk Cousins this year, when he is blitzed, has a 5.6 yards per attempt, which is when he is not blitzed this season is about 2 yards per attempt, which is actually a lot if you think about it. 2 yards per attempt less than when he's blitzed. So, and his overall grades by PFF when he's blitzed goes down pretty significantly as well. So, and I know there's people that may or may not always agree with PFF, and sometimes I have to agree with some of the disagreement. But overall, I think PFF does a pretty good job.
Yeah,
But
not like PFF.
yeah, that's a
Well,
little Kirk Cousins nugget for you. But go ahead.
Dash, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What happened to Joey
Joey
Galladay?
Gallo.
Oh, Kenny
Yeah,
Galladay.
or Kenny Galladay, not Joey. I'm thinking,
Kenny,
yeah,
the
yeah,
seventy-two million
Thinking
Ken.
dollar
twins.
man that has
Yeah,
zero
what happened
touchdowns
to
in
him?
2 years. I think he left his hip in Detroit. Um, we got maybe we got Sammy Galladay instead of Kenny Galladay. We got his twin brother. I don't know. What happened? You figure last year, we thought it was all about the offense and the coaching with Judge and Daniel Jones not taking the chances. And then this year, it was all about injuries, him not being able to get on the field, and him not having the chemistry, and then looking slow. So yeah, right now they're not even playing him. He's getting that handsome paycheck and not playing at all, and it's just crazy to me, that situation. But we blame that on Dave Gettleman. You know, pound for pound, the worst GM ever in NFL history.
Who is your
Yep.
GM now?
Joe Shane.
Okay.
Joe Shane,
And you,
yeah,
and
out of Buffalo. Yeah, he was the
so
assistant GM for Buffalo. Yep.
so I got to ask you before we get further into this matchup specifically, what were your thoughts when they hired, first of all, the replacement for Gettleman, and second of all, the new head coach Brian Daboll, and what have you thought about him
Yeah.
compared to what you thought of him before you hired him, and now that you have him 8-5-1 so far?
Yeah. So the first thing I say, we're absolutely happy because this is the first time that the Giants hired an outsider to come in. All the other GMs prior, well, the past few GMs were always guys that were familiar with the Giants or worked with the Giants before, long-time company men. But when they went and got Joe Shane, we were like, okay, we have a guy um, outside of the facility or outside of the team to come in here and has a good track record. Not just with Buffalo, but also when he was down in Miami and the Carolinas and things like that, where he's been a GM and also a scout. I'm sorry, assistant GM and also a scout and things like that, director of player personnel. So he had a good history of evaluating players. So we're happy about that. And then pretty much when he got the job, we pretty much knew it was going to be Brian Dable that was going to be the head coach. Just a connection, the Buffalo connection. We were prepared for that. We knew that a lot of those coaching interviews were just, you know, for sites and for sight and that so that they can check some boxes. But once Brian Dable got there, we thought we were going in the right direction. And then when he actually started and we saw some progression, we knew that we had the right guys in the building as far as front office and the coaching staff. But another sneaky hire there was our assistant GM that we stole from the Philadelphia Eagles, Brandon Brown. He's a good evaluator of talent too, and hopefully nobody steals him from us. I need at least 2 years of that guy drafting people before he can escape and get a job somewhere else as a GM because I think that's going to happen sooner than later.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting you bring up, how your confidence in Dable. I'll be honest, as a Vikings fan, I was kind of hoping he might choose the Vikings when we were looking for a coach.
I
Big
don't even
fan
know
of,
if we interviewed him, honestly.
And then you
I
guys
don't.
got a new GM too, right? This year. This
We
is your
did.
first. Okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah, new coach, new GM. Really, I mean, kind of an overhaul in the front office for the
Yep.
Vikings as well.
Same thing. Hmm.
I think the one from an outsider perspective, Dash, I feel like even though you mentioned there's a big divide in Giants fandom of pro Daniel Jones, anti Daniel Jones, I think that from an outsider perspective, he seems to have played more consistently this year. We've seen, is it enough of a step? That's for you guys to talk about. But we've seen a progression there. And I think a lot of that just comes down to coaching. And what it makes me think of is look at Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville
Yeah.
with Doug Peterson.
Yeah.
Good coaching does so much for these young quarterbacks. So if there's any chance for
Are you saying
Jones to
Urban Meyer
succeed,
wasn't a good coach in Jacksonville?
well, he was spending too much time in the bars apparently.
And kicking
But
his kickers.
yeah, yeah. So just
Awful.
at the end of the day, I think it bodes well for the future of your franchise that you've got a coach, even if they decide to move away from Jones, a guy who's going to be able to control the room and have
Yeah.
command of the roster and develop players
No,
correctly.
and
So
you're right. You're right because even with the divide in the fan base, there's pretty much a general consensus that we have the right guys in place, and whatever decision they make, is going to be the right decision, for the franchise. But yeah, absolutely.
exactly.
Well, on Brian Daboll, I was really all in for Brian Daboll. Because Sean McDermott's not really an offensive guy, and the fact that he was able to do with Josh Allen what he did, and also be able to do with that Buffalo offense what he did, that just intrigued the heck out of me this offseason when I was thinking of, okay, can we bring in this coach or this coach or this coach? Eric Bieniemy was another guy that I thought would be a good fit, and for some reason still doesn't have a head coaching job, which is mind-boggling to me.
There's a lot of stories out there, reasons,
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah, there is quite a few, but I
Well,
think
it's funny.
maybe he will finally get one. But go ahead, Tony.
Carson, I don't know about you, but I didn't know from a Vikings perspective, I had never even heard of Kevin O'Connell until they started interviewing. To be honest with you, if you would have told me that we were going to hire a Rams coordinator, who I really wanted was Raheem Morris.
Right.
And again, my thought was is because the defense was so bad, let's get a defensive guy in here, get a fresh set of eyes. I did not know who Kevin O'Connell was. Now I'm very happy with him so far. He seems to be able to connect with the players very well. It feels like a fresh team and scheme that we're running, which is nice, and coming from a Mike Zimmer scheme, which is for all of its pros on the defensive side, it was very archaic on the offensive side of the ball. Um, so I don't get me wrong, I like Kevin O'Connell. I'm not sad about it, but it came out of left field. It was like first I'm thinking Raheem Morris, then I'm thinking uh, Jim Harbaugh coming from Michigan when he came and
Right.
flew up here, and then it was nope, we're not going with Harbaugh, which was a surprise to everybody. And I think within 24, 48 hours, we're hiring Kevin O'Connell. So it was
Well,
it was, it was a weird deal.
Kevin O'Connell, he comes from the Sean McVay tree, right? Is that where he's
Yeah,
from?
both. So
Sean McVay,
yeah,
Kyle
So the
Shanahan.
Shanahan
Yep.
tree. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
yep. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
the Rams offensive coordinator for
Okay.
the Super Bowl winning Rams.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of thought that O'Connell was maybe just the backseat driver, so to speak, I guess, of the Rams, or backseat took a backseat to Sean McVay. But boy, it's kind of seeming to me that maybe he wasn't as backseat as we thought, based on his first year coaching with the Vikings. I didn't know what to expect. I thought that he could be good, but now, I mean, just seeing his demeanor, because I had never seen like a press conference of his before, really his opening press conference for the Vikings. So I was kind of like, okay, who is this guy? What do I know about him? Like, I guess I sort of remember his name coming up back when he played in the NFL, but not really. That might even be a stretch that I remember that. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, he's kind of a new guy, but he's been he's been everything the Vikings could have hoped for and more here in year one. So
See, now I'm trying to test my memory. He was a quarterback, right? Kevin
that's
O'Connell
correct. He
for the
played
Patriots.
under played under Bill
Okay.
Belichick and was the
Okay.
backup to Tom Brady for a
Okay.
year, I think, and then kind of bounced around a little bit. But yeah, he definitely was destined to be more of a coach
Coach.
than a
Yeah.
player. So
That sounds like
Yeah, because
our
then he
offensive
got moved to
coordinator.
the Jets.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. The revenge game a few weeks ago with the Jets. But anyways, let's move on to the offense and defensive matchups more specifically. We've already talked a little bit about it, but let's talk about your Giants offense against this Vikings defense. So I would say the thing that is somewhat encouraging for Vikings fans and for the Vikings, and not saying that this couldn't change very
Go ahead and
easily
say it.
on Saturday, but the good thing is that the Vikings defense has actually been pretty good against the run this season. That's the one thing they've done well, which is also maybe not saying a lot, but because of how bad they've been at pass defense. But I think that that's going to make it tough on Barkley, but I still think he could have a good day running the football. Um, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Obviously, Barkley still scares me. It would have been very interesting to see what Jonathan Taylor would have done had he been healthy the entire game last week.
Yeah.
Unfortunate that he had to go down. Um, Not unfortunate for the Vikings, obviously, but unfortunate for the Colts. And you never want to see a player go down, but um, I don't know if the Vikings would have won that game had Jonathan Taylor stayed in the entire time. I'm just gonna
And then
say that.
you're able to control the clock a little bit more with the run game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So
So yeah.
go ahead.
No, so what I'll say, again, I know I said it before, the offense of the Giants runs through Saquon Barkley, but also, if you notice at the beginning of our games when they run their scripted plays, a lot of that's where you see a lot of the passing early on, and like I said, that's where we take the most of our deep shots are early on, especially in that first quarter, that first series, we might take a deep shot early, just to see, what the defense is doing. Then we make our adjustments and things like that, and then if that doesn't work, then that's where we go to the bread and butter, and we just start running the ball with Saquon Barkley, little bootleg action with Daniel Jones. You know, we go back to that, or we resort back to that, and that's what's been driving the fan base crazy as well, because we know that Saquon Barkley is the best player on the offense, but in order for us to play, meaningful football and football within this decade, as far as style, we have to throw the ball a little bit more. And again, with your pass defense, maybe we are able to open it up a little bit, but I don't think the Giants change much. But like I said, those first couple of series is probably going to be the most that you see the Giants throw the ball in this game, unless it's just successful and we're moving the ball passing like that. And then you'll see maybe a reverse where um, Saquon Barkley gets open off of the pass play. back you guys up a little bit, and then let Saquon Barkley do what he needs to do. But he's still dealing with injuries. He has a shoulder injury. We've been begging to put him on like a pitch count and let some of the other running backs get some carries as well to try to keep him healthy. For the whole game. But that's the way the Giants play football. It's all about Saquon Barkley. We kind of hope that he would be more involved in the passing game as a running back as well. I know my expectation early in the season or before the season was him to be used like an Alvin Kamara for the Saints, where he's used out of the backfield as a receiving running back, but we just haven't seen that, and I think that has to do with our interior offensive line not being up to par. Our center position, our right guard, that's our weak spots right now. And then Evan Neal, of course, he's a rookie, but he's still learning, and he hasn't had his best couple of games either after coming back off that knee injury. So I think that's going to be the pain points against you guys, because you guys do have some good edge rushers too that are there. And depends on who lines up against who. I'm not worried about whoever lines up against Andrew Thomas, because he's playing at a high level this year, and he hasn't been giving up pretty much anything. But on that right side and at that center position, that's our weak spot. So that's what I'm looking out for this game. And if we are passing, hopefully Evan Neal and Glowinski on that right side can hold up. And then, like I said, Feliciano, a lot of people are hoping that Gates takes over the center spot, because Feliciano is not good in pass protection at all. At least Gates is physical, and he has better feet. But yeah, that's what worries Giants fans the most, is that interior line, and that's pretty much the reason why we don't take deep shots, because we don't trust that interior offensive line to give Daniel Jones the time to throw the ball.
Carson, I have to ask you something, because and maybe I'm just losing my mind here, but this Giants team currently reminds me a lot of the Vikings about 8 to 10 years ago, and I'm not saying,
Adrian
I'm sorry,
Peterson.
Dash. Kinda where you had
You don't have
Adrian
to
Peterson.
apologize. You do not have to apologize. No.
You had
Well,
Adrian Peterson.
we may want to apologize to Adrian Peterson for calling Saquon Barkley Adrian Peterson. Not saying he couldn't get there, but a little too soon for that.
Well, I'm just saying this. I think I don't even think that's not. I mean, I think Saquon's really good. My thing is, it reminds me of it's like schematically, because we had Adrian Peterson with Christian Ponder. And I think Daniel Jones is better than Christian Ponder.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
but what I mean by all this is to say everything flowed through Adrian. Like, everything flowed through Adrian.
Right.
And if we were going to win the game, I'd say 9 wins out of every 10 were because of Adrian.
I love that comparison.
Every once in a while you get like, hey, there was an okay game. But generally speaking, it all flowed through the running back, and then the defense was good enough at times where maybe they were opportunistic. They got a few turnovers. They weren't ever elite, but it was like they were good enough. And then they had their moments, right? So it kind of reminds me of that. And boy, I don't know. I mean, I guess the best question for you, Dash, is and we already we just tickled this topic for a second, but I'm just going to ask you directly, where are you at with Jones? Do you feel like it's time that we hit the reset button? Not so much because you hate Jones, as much as maybe we want to move away. As good as Barkley is, look at the way that the offenses operate in this league, in today's league. It's all about receivers. It's all about the pass game. That's how we as Vikings fans felt. I really liked Adrian. I mean, obviously, he had some weird stuff happen towards the end of his time here, but in general, like, he was amazing. But I knew in my heart of hearts that offense wasn't sustainable, because the way the league was shifting,
absolutely,
you weren't going to be able to make it.
No, absolutely. So it's been a roller coaster, right? At the beginning of the year before the season started, I wanted an open competition between him and Tyrod Taylor. That's how I felt. And then once we started winning games, and even though his numbers didn't jump off the screen, I was like, yeah, he's efficient. And to call a quarterback efficient, that's not the best compliment. You want a superstar. You want you want a winner, a game winner. A guy that will throw the ball, take chances, things like that. And he's not that guy. And to go back again to the Kenny Galladay, his strength was 50-50 balls. Jones will not throw a 50-50 ball. If he doesn't think he'll get it there, he's not going to take the chance. And that's another issue that we have with Daniel Jones as well. So for me, um, if I had to make the decision going off of this year where we're at right now, stats and everything like that, I don't pay him the money in 2023. That's just how I feel because I think that we can get that same type of offensive production from somebody else, from a lot of people. Now on the other side of that is he does not turn the ball over. And if you get somebody else in here, especially a rookie, they're going to turn the ball over. So it's kind of a yin and a yang to it. But these last 3 games, and I've been saying the last 6 games, the last 4 games. Now I'm down to the last 3 games. I really need to see something from Jones that's going to make me sway my opinion. But right now, especially with the money, especially with our cap issue, we're only going to have 38 players under contract next year. And if you're going to pay Daniel Jones 25 million and then try to play Saquon Barkley another 10 to 12 to 15 million, who else you're going to get? Who else you going to how you going to build this team up? You can't all be rookies. So right now where I'm sitting, I don't think so.
Yeah, and I don't expect you to have an answer for this right now, but I know one of the thoughts that ran through my head, and then Carson, I'll have you chime in where you were at with this. When I started to have that feeling about Peterson and company here, my thought is okay, if we're not going to do this forever, then we need to start thinking about moving on from this player while we can still get a decent return for him. And we waited too long. I can say that the Vikings waited too long, and we got nothing for Adrian Peterson.
I have a story for you now. So I got killed over the summer because I didn't I didn't expect the Giants to be where they were or where they are, and I said, you know what? If Saquon Barkley has a bounce back year coming off of injury, and he's doing fantastic, but the Giants are losing, you trade him at the deadline and you get whatever you can get for him. And people killed me. They killed me for it. And then like I said, a roller coaster of a season. Not only did he have a good year, now the Giants also winning games. I'm like, well, now you can't trade him because he's looking like he's worth everything. He's looking like the second overall pick from 2018. You got to keep this guy now. And then you have him get hurt, and then there was a four game span where he was just looking bad. And then he just had the bounce back game this past game, and if you really pay attention to it, a lot of those yards didn't come into the fourth quarter, even against the Commanders. And so that's another thing now. It's like, okay, whatever we were offering him at the bye, because he did turn down a deal at the bye week. This is Saquon Barkley, and I'm thinking whatever he's getting now is probably going to be less, or are we just going to tag him and try to get Jones on a cheap deal? But again, the money just doesn't add up to me, and so now we're sitting at a point where we might not have either one of those guys next year, and then you're really building and starting from scratch. So yeah, man, that's why I said 2022 is here. I'm focusing on that. 2023 is going to be an entirely different animal, and I'm not ready or prepared for that yet. So I'm going to stay in 2022 for right now.
It's interesting you guys mentioned that because I was just thinking about that. You mentioned Adrian Peterson and that the Vikings never, because Rick Spielman was absolutely against trading any of his good players. But I agree. I agree with you, Dash. I think I would even after this offseason consider trading Saquon Barkley because you are going to have to pay him, and
he's a free agent.
Not worth it. Like I am a very big proponent of drafting running backs or signing a UDFA because the longer you stick with a running back, the more broken down he becomes.
Yep.
And in this league, if you have a good offensive line, you can put a lot of different people back there. I'm not saying you could put, like me or Tony or maybe even you back there.
No, you can't.
Because that wouldn't be a good idea. But anybody that's coming out of college or that has the speed, has the vision to be able to run in a backfield, like go ahead, put them back there because that's where I feel about the running back position. It's not that valuable anymore. Now, what Barkley has done is more valuable than what a lot of running backs give. I will grant him that, and he's a phenomenal player. There's no question about it. Yeah. But when you consider what you're going to have to pay him when his contract is up, like you've said, in like I've said about even Dalvin Cook. Like we're talking about, well, maybe we should cut Dalvin Cook this year because we don't know if anybody will trade for him. But if somebody does trade for him, then okay. Um,
What year is Cook in?
What's that?
What year is he in, Cook?
Hmm.
Because I
So
know he's dealt with some injuries too, right?
Yeah, I think he's in
yeah.
year 4
Okay.
Well, no,
He
I
was a
think
or
first.
he's.
5.
I
Was
think
he a first
he's
round pick?
year 5 or
Was he
6
was he a
because
first round pick, Carson?
second round pick.
Okay, so you
Second.
don't have
Dalvin was a
5th-year
second
option on
round
him.
pick. He's not on his rookie deal anymore.
Okay.
He's making like
13 mil.
Oof.
yeah,
14.
I could pull it up here, but I I'm basically just in that same mindset with Dalvin where it's like we don't need to pay running backs. Don't pay Alexander Madison either. Go draft some people and and kind of work on that offensive line.
Yeah, and the data is there too. Historically, running backs, I think there's only been 2 good deals, and that was McCaffrey and Derrick Henry. Everybody else,
Yeah.
Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley, the track record has been awful for running backs. And
And
for I, yeah,
one thing I always go back to too, Dash, is if you go back and look at all the Super Bowl champions from the last several years, how many times do you see a big contract running back on those teams? Not very often.
you haven't
Like
not
you
not in a
have the
long time.
Patriots, you have the Patriots with all their rotating players throughout the years. They had Corey Dillon for a little bit, yes, but um, a lot of their Super Bowls were with running backs like a James White who
Yep.
didn't get paid that much. Other guys like that.
Danny Woodhead.
Yeah, Danny Woodhead of all people. And
Yeah,
then
Shane Vereen. Yeah,
yeah,
bunch. Yeah,
yeah.
and the Chiefs don't really have a running back that's getting paid much. The 49ers, when they went to the Super Bowl, same thing.
Yep.
But hey, Elijah, appreciate you getting in here. Yeah, still can't believe it. I'm still recovering from the Buffalo game. I don't know about you, but it's been how many months now? 2 months now. Well, not maybe that long. A month and a half since then, but
So Dash, you
crazy.
said that it's Saquon's hits his contract year.
yeah. No, yeah, he's a free agent after this year. If we don't tag him, he's free. He's free to go.
I
Yeah.
definitely would trade him then. So
We can't now. Deadline's
Yeah,
over.
we can't. We can't now. We can only tag him and let him walk, or either get a deal done with him. But after that,
he's a
he's
free,
unrestricted.
free
He's
agent
unrestricted
after
free.
this year, not next year.
Yep, this is he's on his 5th year
Oh.
right now. Yep, this is his
Wow.
option year. Yep. So he's free. He's free right now. Somebody can offer him a lot of money. He can walk away from the Giants unless we tag him. But we'll see what happens, man.
Yeah. So Dalvin Cook, he 2022 he is 27 years old. He's 6 years in the league now,
Okay.
and he is at next year. His cap hit is $14 million, dead cap of $6 million. So the
Okay.
Vikings
So he
could
saved
cut
some
him
money.
and save $8 million next year.
Now, how's his
yeah.
production this year? Because like I said, he still pops off the screen. He's still pretty fast. He can still, take it
Yeah.
to the house whenever he gets his hands on the ball.
Yeah, his production at times has shown up, like you said, with some of those big plays, but I would say overall, I haven't been that impressed with his production. I think sometimes he just kind of doesn't move in space as quickly as he used to. And it seems like, I don't know if you get this feeling, Tony, or just from watching him, but it just seems like he goes down way more easier than he used to. And I know that's easy
I'm
for me to
familiar with
say,
that feeling.
but
Yeah, I'm 36. I just need to go to bed too late and I feel terrible.
yeah, but I feel like there's probably a lot of running backs that don't go down as easily. That obviously Derrick Henry, which is the king example, if you will. But it's just kind of frustrating because it seems like he's always so close to breaking a big, 10 to 15, 20-yard run, and he doesn't have that many 20-yard runs or more this season. There's only been a handful. So
But you also use him in the passing game a little bit too, though.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
did, and actually it worked out really well on that screen last week. But
yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
Tony, any thoughts on your Dalvin opinion? Has it changed?
No, I think the way I look at the running back position is it's it's really just a supply and demand issue, and not really an issue for the buyers. It's for the sellers. Um, there's a lot of backs out there that can give you good production. We talked about Dalvin Cook. Dash, you asked how he's doing. Dalvin is a phenomenal player. Like he's a very talented. I'd say he's more talented than most running backs.
I
Obviously,
think so.
there's
Yeah,
the elite backs, and I think he's getting into that arena. I don't want to say he's top. He's probably not top three,
Those
but he's
first
getting
couple
close to
years,
top five.
those
Yeah,
first couple years, he looked very special.
absolutely. And you know what? He still is special. I think what's hard is that when you start playing the numbers game, you go,
That's it.
okay, if we can save, as stupid as this sounds, if we can save 75% of our capital spent, but only lose like 20% of the production,
Yeah.
we're way ahead, right? And we can
Okay.
make up that ground somewhere else. Maybe not necessarily even in the running back position, because like for instance with the Vikings, we're so poor on the defensive side of the ball. Can they use that capital
That's
on the
exactly what it is.
defense?
Every
Are
time.
we going to see a bigger impact using that money elsewhere? I think that's what's so tough, and that's why when I talk to people about the Dalvin thing, and even with Madison, because I really like Madison too. I think he's one of the best backups in the league. And we see him every week. Madison wants a shot to be a number one somewhere, and he should go get your money. Like he should want that. The
Yeah.
thing is, the Vikings aren't going to want to pay another running back
Can't do it.
RB1 money. So
Can't do it. Yeah.
my opinion is, I think they're going to try to. I think they're going to try to deal Dalvin, and I think they'll let Madison walk. Madison's an unrestricted free agent after this year, and like I said, more power. I hope Dalvin goes somewhere, just nowhere that he's gonna kill us. And same thing
yeah.
with Madison. But I hope both of those guys have fantastic careers somewhere else. It's just for this team and where we're at. Boy, we need that capital, and part of it's the fact that Kirk Cousins' contract is. Look, I know it's not the biggest contract, but he's making what 6 money? Is it the
His
fifth
his cap
highest?
hit his cap hit is a top 5 cap hit in the league.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And see,
So
that's the same storyline what we're trying to avoid with Daniel Jones.
exactly,
The same
exactly,
thing. It's like, do
and
you want to stay in a certain area and pay this guy a lot of money and just be stagnant? You
yeah,
don't want to be stagnant. And like I said, we saw it happen with Washington when Kurt was there. Um, and like I said, if that's going on, then you guys feel the same way with the Vikings now, then yeah, there's a lot of warning signs out there that you can take an example and see like, yeah. But that's the biggest thing with Daniel Jones, man. Just trying to we thought would have a more definitive answer by now, especially with the new coach. And you got your starting quarterback 160 yards, 170 yards a game, and it's just not where
that's
the
not
NFL is trending.
$25 million. It's not
Yeah.
worth it. That's kind of where we are with Kirk, or at least I was prior to this year. I think this year he's earned his money based on the fourth quarter comebacks and helping lead this team to wins. But prior to this year, I was kind of the mindset, yeah, I understand that you won't maybe get as high a production by bringing in a rookie, but think of all the other positions that you can grow and have better talent at if
Yep.
you just go with a rookie instead of Kirk Cousins. You save 30 plus $1 million in cap space by doing that or whatever it is. And that's huge. Like if you're not a Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, if you're not in that top tier, if you're not a Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, whoever else you want to throw in that top 5 area bin, I'm sorry. Like I would never have paid Dak Prescott the money that he got. Like
That's
I
another
would
one.
I would never have paid him that kind of money. That was outrageous. He has
I
not
think
proved anything to me in
yeah.
this league to make that kind of money.
Now I think that when it comes to those kind of situations, you're stuck because if you don't pay that person, you're thinking, okay, so who is going to replace him? and that's how you get stuck. Now I know, Dak Prescott was a good enough quarterback, especially in our division. All those down years in the division, the NFC East, where he was a top quarterback in the division, and then now you have a guy like Jalen Hurts, which statistically the numbers aren't great, but the team's winning. He's hard to prepare for, and you can see the difference. And then just last week, look at Dak with the interceptions against the Jaguars and things like. Even though that last one wasn't really his fault, it was tipped, and in overtime. But yeah, I can see that. I can see that with Dak Prescott. I give him a little bit more credit, but also I think the offensive line that he had, Ezekiel Elliott in his prime, the wide receivers that he's had, Amani Cooper, Des Bryant early in his career too. So yeah, no, I absolutely believe. Yeah, I see what you're saying with Dak
Hey,
Prescott. Yeah, you don't want to get caught in that situation.
well, Dash, let me ask you this question because every quarterback needy team this offseason, you know what it's going to be? It's going to be the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes. So what do you think, man? Like, is that what's your opinion on Jackson? Do you not care because you're like, the Giants aren't going to do it anyway, or are you
Oh
like,
man,
no,
you
man, if they pull the
imagine?
trigger,
Can you
No,
imagine if
we don't have the money. First of all,
yeah.
we don't have the money. What I'll say is if Baltimore lets him leave, it'd probably be the worst mistake they ever made.
Yep,
yeah,
Because if
I
you put
agree.
Lamar Jackson on, I don't know, put him in Minnesota,
yeah,
like
we
you
take him.
know,
Justin Jefferson,
it's
Lamar Jackson.
put him in San Francisco. Like it's now it's not even fair.
Yeah.
So so I really don't think he actually hits the open market. I think they absolutely tag him at least. He's getting tagged.
Yeah.
They're not going to let him walk. That's just something that's not going to happen. Now will he hold out? He seems like he might be the type that actually will sit out a
Yeah.
season or hold out. So we'll see what happens. But I definitely don't think he'll be in any other jersey. You know, next year. No
Yeah.
Yeah.
way.
The fan base would
No
eat him
way.
alive.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I
If
I think he deserves at least what Dak Prescott's making. At least if you're paying Dak Prescott that kind of money, $40 million a year or whatever it is,
Oh,
yeah.
he gets that easy.
Yeah.
Lamar's got to like.
What you
There's
don't
no
want to
way
happen.
if you're Lamar's agent, there's no way you're saying, we're not taking less than Dak Prescott. Like, not that I'm not trying to disrespect Dak, but I don't think he's worth that kind of money. I just don't.
Isn't
He,
Jackson representing himself? Isn't that's the other
yeah,
thing
he
too? He
does.
used
I
to
Yeah.
think
use
he
an
actually
agent.
has an agent now, but he was
Oh,
representing himself. But I think one thing that's affecting his money too is the Kyler Murray deal. Kyler Murray should
Yeah.
have never got paid the money, especially as
Oh
early as he
yeah.
got paid. That what
mm,
he got that money after his third season, right? He
Yeah.
held out and he had a fourth and a fifth year option still, and they went and paid him all that money, and now look at him.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, yeah. Well, you know what's going to kill the Vikings is the Christian Kirk deal for wide
oh yeah,
receivers. And the
yeah.
sad
What?
thing is that if Christian Kirk could have bombed like Kyler did, because Kirk's actually having a pretty good season over there in Jacksonville.
Yeah,
It just boy that wide receiver market's going to be
yeah. It's
crazy.
funny that you said.
I think
Yeah,
Jefferson gets paid this offseason.
oh man,
I think they
they
tried
have to.
to extend him because you get another season under the books. I don't think so.
Yeah,
So
no, I believe that. And I just saw, I think it was on Sports Rack. They had like numbers for T Higgins, and you figure T Higgins is the second to third option right now, and his number was like 23 million a year, and you're like, oh, this wide receiver market is absolutely bananas right now, and
yeah,
uh, I don't know where it goes from here because it only goes up. You have the deal coming through with the TV deal and all that, and the cap is going up. So we'll see what happens, man. But wide receivers on average making, on a low end making 20 million, on a high end possibly making 26 to 27 million now. It's just a crazy number.
yeah. I think Jefferson will get extended, and I think that may be one of the reasons why the whole Dalvin situation, like I just explained, will happen. I also think that probably leads to Thielen also not being on this team next
Wow.
year as well. The beloved Minnesota boy, Adam Thielen, which, at the end of the day, I think KJ is probably ready to slip into that numbers two spot for us anyway. So,
I like
I
Osborne.
think
I like him. I
yeah,
like I like
Osborne.
the I like what he's doing. You don't think Thielen takes a cap friendly deal or team friendly deal?
He might.
To
I mean,
stay?
because he's been on this team, so he's the longest tenured Viking on this roster right now. Thielen was on this team before Teddy Bridgewater was drafted to the Vikings. We forget
Wow.
how long he's been on this team
Wow.
because he started on the practice squad.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Harrison
Yeah,
Smith as well.
yeah.
Wow.
Thielen's first touchdown was while the new stadium was being built on a blocked punt because he only played
Sheesh.
special teams.
That's when you guys played
Yeah.
at the college stadium, right?
Yep. Yes,
Wow.
sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was at that
Okay.
game. It was super cold. It was against Carolina. Ugh.
Sheesh.
We won.
Yep. Um, any other thoughts on the Vikings offense and the Giants defense here? Dash. Anything that you're worried about other than Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins,
I mean, that's
T.J.
that's
Hawkinson?
that's it, man. You guys have a lot of weapons.
Should I just
And
keep listing?
like I said, the main thing is the pass rush. Is getting to Kirk Cousins because if he has time, he is gonna, pretty much eat us alive, man. Because like I said, if anything longer than 2.5 to 3 seconds, our cornerbacks are not holding up. Are not holding up. So we depend on Azeez Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeau to attack the edges, and then Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams to collapse the pocket, and that's where our game lies. And that, especially on defense for us, we have to get to Kirk Cousins, and I think that's the main game plan. Outside of course, you always want to stop the run. That's every team, every week, that's football, stopping the run. But as far as the passing game goes, we have to get to Kirk Cousins as fast as possible.
All right. Well, that leads us into our game predictions, and we're gonna start with you, Dash. You're our guest here tonight, so let's
Okay.
uh, let's let you lead this off here.
So I just did a video I released. I did put a prediction on there, and I do have the New York Giants stealing a win from the
All
Vikings,
right,
24-20. I like the
24 to
dome. I
20.
like the dome and not having to deal with the elements. So yeah, and Daniel Jones has had some great games in domes.
Well, I don't know if you heard this, but it is a whiteout on
No,
Saturday, so
okay.
the elements of a whiteout you'll have to deal with.
Oh yeah, that's the shtick you get to look forward to.
They've
Dash is that.
repainted the Viking logo at midfield. It's white and purple now. There's
Yeah,
no yellow,
No
no
yellow.
gold in there.
and the
Okay.
end
So
zones are
I guess I
white.
should have changed our
Are
background
the
to all
are the
white here.
uniforms going to be different at all?
Yeah,
All
they're going to be an
white.
all white.
What even the helmet?
No,
No,
not the
not
helmet.
except
Oh,
for the
I was, I
helmet.
was, I was saying,
Which
'cause I know I
people
saw
are always like, oh yeah, when are you gonna change the helmet then?
I saw Cincinnati do it with the all white helmet.
Oh yeah,
So I thought maybe it's possible.
I don't think there's a better uniform in football than that Cincinnati Bengal uniform.
Mm.
That all white uniform when the tiger white Bengal,
Yeah.
oh yeah. That's one of my favorite uniforms. Titans have usually pretty good uniform. They got a great color scheme, I think, too, by the way, but
Yeah.
now that we've gotten our uniform nerdology taken care of, I guess. Tony, how about you? Vikings or Giants? What's your
Yeah,
score?
I'm a little worried about this game as a Vikings fan. I'm with you, Dash. I think that there is a better than good, better than decent chance. Is that a better way to say it? A lot of betters there. I think they have a good chance. They have a good chance to win this game, meaning the Giants. I think it's going to be a hard fought game. I'm looking forward to it. I do think it's going to be a tight game. I don't see a blowout for either team here. Um, Score prediction, I'm gonna say Giants 24, Vikings 110. No.
Oh
No,
wow,
no, I'm gonna say Giants
Vikes by
24,
million.
Vikings 28. So I'm gonna pick the Vikings. And Dash, just so you know,
I'm not
I'm
mad at that
not
at all.
always a homie, but whenever I pick the Vikings, the other team usually wins. And then the opposite happens. When I
Oh boy.
predict our foes will win, we usually win those games. So I guess it's looking up for you because I picked the Vikings.
Well, last time I picked the Vikings was last week, and they had the greatest comeback in NFL history after being down by 33. Um, I'm going to pick the Vikings again, and I'm going to say 27-17 Vikings. I think the defense surprises us again,
Possessions.
this time for a whole game. They surprise us and play well. I think they're going to be ready for Barkley, and I think we're going to see maybe Daniel Jones struggle a little bit to find his receivers. So,
The biggest thing is
Yeah.
going to be pressure for both
Yeah.
teams.
Yeah.
Which team can
Absolutely.
create pressure on the other team's quarterback?
Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, hey, Dash, really appreciate you coming on here tonight. Make sure to tell everybody where they can get your content and how they can follow you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be just Big Dash Knows on all social media platforms, on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Yep, I'm all those areas.
All right. Any special videos or anything that you're releasing soon?
I just dropped the I guess the preview for this game. I did that earlier today. Just a prediction game and a preview game. Gave you guys a lot of love too on that. 'Cause like I said,
Appreciate it.
I do think the Vikings are very good. I do think they're very good. They're not the worst 11-3 team like some people may say. I actually think they're pretty good, and they do have an explosive offense.
That is one thing they've got. They've got the ability to be. We just want to see them get to that top 5 level because that's how good we think that this offense can be. It's just a matter of if they can show it consistently. But
Absolutely.
well,
But thanks for
appreciate it.
having me.
Appreciate
Oh, thank
that,
you.
and make sure to go follow Dash on social and subscribe to his YouTube channel as well. So, all right, everybody, I think that's going to do it. Tony, also, I guess you maybe want to give a shout out as well. You were on Drew Harrison's podcast earlier this week.
Oh yeah. So if you want to catch me, I did join the Nickel and Dime podcast with comedian Drew Harrison earlier this week. That just got released today. That's everywhere you can find your podcast: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, what have you. It was a great time. Obviously, I injected a lot of Vikings fandom, so maybe they'll welcome me back after that. We're not sure.
Very good. Very good. Well, that's going to do it for our show. Make sure, again, to like, subscribe, and as always, I'm sure we won't get Dash to say it, but as always, Skol.
Skol!